Hi everyone, good morning. It's me, Patricia Camille P. Francisco. So today I will be reading a story entitled The Fall of Troy. Troy was an ancient city in northwest Anatolia that was the center of the Trojan War, a legendary conflict in ancient Greek mythology. With Hector dead, Achilles knew, as his mother had told him, that his own death was near. One more great feat of arms he did before his fighting ended forever. Prince Menon of Ethiopia, the son of the goddess of the dam, came to the assistance of Troy with a large army, and for a time, even though Hector was gone, the Greeks were hard pressed and lost many a gallant warrior, including swift-footed Antilochus, old Castor's sons. Gallant means a brave soldier. Finally, Achilles killed Menon in a glorious combat, the Greek hero's last battle. Then he himself fell beside the Seine gates. He had driven the Trojans before him up to the wall of Troy. There, Pyrrhus shot an arrow at him, and Apollo guided it so that it struck his foot into one spot where he could be wounded, his heel. His mother Thetis, when he was born, had intended to make him invulnerable by dipping him into the river Styx. But she was careless and did not see to it that the water covered the part of the foot by which she was holding him. He died, and Ajax carried his body out of the battle while Odysseus held the Trojans back. It is said that after he had been bombed on the funeral pyre, his bones were placed in the same urn that held those of his friend Protoclus. His arms, those marvelous arms, Thetis had brought him from Hephaestus, caused the death of Ajax. It was decided in full assembly that the heroes who caused the death of Ajax, it was decided in full assembly that the heroes who best deserved them were Ajax and Odysseus. A secret vote was then taken between the two, and Odysseus got the arms. Such a decision was a very serious matter in those days. It was not only that the man who won was honored, the man who defeated was held to be dishonored. Ajax saw himself disgraced, and in a fit of furious anger he determined to kill Agamemnon and Menelaus. He believed, and with reason, that they had turned the boat against him. At nightfall he went to find them, and he had reached their quarters, when Athena struck him with madness. He thought the flocks and herds of the Greeks were the army, and rushed to kill them, believing that he was slaying now this chieftain. Now that, finally, he dragged to his tent a huge ram, which to his distracted mind was Odysseus, bound him to the ten people and beat him savagely. Oh. Then his frenzy left him. He regained his reason and saw that his disgrace in not winning the arms had been but a shadow as compared with the same his own deeds had drawn down upon him. His rage, his folly, his madness would be apparent to everyone. The slaughtered animals were lying all over the field. The poor cat, he said to himself, killed to no purpose by my hand. and is sent here alone, hateful to man and to gods. In such a state, only a coward clings to life. A man, if he cannot live nobly, can die nobly. He drew his sword and killed himself. The Greeks would not burn his body. They buried him. They held that a suicide should not be honored with a funeral pyre and urn burial. His death following so soon upon Achilles dismayed the Greeks. Victory seemed as far off as ever. Their prophet Calchas told them that he had no message from the gods for them, but that there was a man among the Trojans who knew the future, the prophet Helenus. If they captured him, they could learn from him what they should do. Odysseus succeeded in making him a prisoner, and he told the Greeks Troy would not fall until someone fought against the Trojans with the bow and arrows of Hercules.
This had been given when Hercules died to the prince Philoctetes, the man who had fired his funeral pyre and who later had joined the Greek host when they sailed to Troy. On the voyage, the Greeks stopped at an island to offer a sacrifice, and Philoctetes was bitten by a serpent, a most frightful wound. It would not heal. It was impossible to carry him to Troy as he was. The army could not wait. They left him finally at Lemnos, then an uninhabited island, although once the heroes of the quest of the Golden Fleece had found plenty of women there. It was cruel to desert the helpless sufferer, but they were desperate to get on to Troy, and with his bow and arrows, he would at least never lack for food. When Helenus spoke, however, the Greeks knew well that it would be hard to persuade him whom they had so wronged to give his precious weapons to them. So they sent Odysseus, the master of crafty cunning, to get them by trickery. Some say that Diomedes went with him and others, Neoptolemus, also called Pyrrhus, the young son of Achilles. They succeeded in stealing the bow and arrows, but when it came to leaving the poor wretch alone there, deprived of them, they could not do it. In the end, they persuaded him to do with them. Back at Troy, the wise physician of the Greeks healed him, and when at last he went joyfully once again into battle, the first man who wanted with his arrows was Paris.
Paris begged to be carried to Onan, the nymph he had lived with on Mount Ida before the three goddesses came to him. She had told him that she knew a magic drug to cure any ailment. They took him to her and he asked her to his life, but she refused. His desertion of her, his long forgetfulness, could not be forgiven in a moment because of his need. She was watched him die. Then she went away and killed herself. Troy did not fall because Paris was dead. He was, indeed, no great loss. At last, the Greeks learned that there was a most sacred image of Pallas Athena in the city, called the Palladium, and that as long as the Trojans had it, Troy could not be taken. Accordingly, the two greatest of the chieftains left alive by then, Odysseus and Diomedes, determined to Troy to steal it. Diomedes was the one who bore the image oft. In a dark night, he climbed the wall with Odysseus' help, found the Palladium, and took it to the camp. With this great encouragement, the Greek determined to wait no longer, but devised a way to put an end to the endless war.
They saw clearly by now that unless they could get their army into the city and take the Trojans by surprise, they would never conquer. Almost 10 years had passed since they had first laid siege to the town, and it seemed as strong as ever. The walls stood uninjured. They had never suffered a real attack. The fighting had taken place, for the most part, at a distance from them. The Greeks must find a secret way of entering the city or accept defeat. The result of this new determination and new vision was the stratagem of the wooden horse. It was, as anyone would guess, the creation of Odysseus' wily mind.
He had a skillful worker in wood make a huge wooden horse, which was hollow and so big that it could hold a number of men. Then he persuaded and had a great difficulty in doing so. Certain the chieftains to hide inside it, allowed with himself, of course. They were all terror, stricken except Achilles, son Neoptolemus. And indeed, what they faced was no slight danger. The idea was that all the other Greeks should strike camp and apparently put out to sea, but they would really hide beyond the nearest island where they could not be seen by Trojans. Whatever happened, they would be safe. They could sail home if anything went wrong, but in that case, the man inside the wooden horse would surely die. Odysseus, as can be readily believed, had not overlooked this fact. His plan was to leave a single Greek behind in the deserted camp, primed with a tale calculated to make the Trojans draw the horse into the city, and without investigating it. Then, when night was darkest, the Greeks inside resolved to leave their wooden prison and open the city gates to the army, which by that the time would have sailed back and be waiting before the wall.
Thank you, Miss Patricia. So now, let's continue the story of how the city of Troy was destroyed. One night, after 10 years of war with the Trojans, the Greeks put their final plan into action. They leave behind an innermost wooden horse at the gates of Troy and appear to abandon their camp, sailing away in silence. At dawn, the Trojan soldiers look out and see the strange, gigantic horse, a sight that stirs both fear and curiosity. With the Greek camp deserted, the Trojans assume the enemy has finally left in defeat. The people of Troy are overjoyed, believing the war is over, and pour out the city to explore the Greek camp, celebrating what they think is their victory. Among the ruins of the camp, they encounter Sinon, a Greek soldier who stayed behind. Sinon, weeping, claims to have deserted his army, saying that he was chosen for a sacrifice to Athena and barely escaped. He tells the Trojans that the wooden horse was built as an offering to Athena to protect the Greeks on their journey home. To ensure the Trojans wouldn't take it into city, the Greeks supposedly made it innermost, hoping it would be destroyed and angered Athena. While most Trojans are captivated by Sinon's tale, there are some voices of caution. The priest Laocoon warns them, famously saying, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." However, just as Laocoon and his sons raised Suspinius, two giant serpents emerged from the sea and killed them, an event the Trojans see as a divine sign that Laocoon's doubt angered Athena. Cassandra, the daughter of King Priam, who has the gift of prophecy but is cursed never to be believed, also warns that the horse will bring disaster. But her pleas go unheard. As always, people assured by what they see as divine signs, the Trojans pull the horse into the city, planning to dedicate it to Athena. As night falls, the Trojans celebrate what they believe is the end of the war. They feast and rejoice, finally at peace, and fall into a deep sleep. As the city sleeps, the Greek chiefs silently return under cover of darkness. The hidden soldiers inside a horse led by Odysseus open a trapdoor and climb down, quietly killing the guards. They open the city gates to let in the returning Greek army. Fires are set all over Troy, and soon the entire city is in flames. The Trojans wake in a roar, disoriented and unprepared as they are attacked on all sides. Priam, the aging king of Troy, tries to defend his palace, but is ultimately killed by Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles, in front of his family. It's a brutal slaughter. Most Trojans are overwhelmed by the sudden attack, with many never even getting the chance to fight back. In the chaos, the Trojan hero Aeneas fights valiantly, but he realizes that Troy is lost. Urged by his mother, the goddess Aphrodite, he decided to save his family rather than die defending the city. Gathering his elderly father on his shoulders, his young son by his hand, and a small group of survivors, he managed to escape the burning city. Tragically, his wife is separated and lost in the confusion. Though he safely brings his son and father out of Troy, destined to find a new homeland, a journey that will eventually lead to the founding of Rome. By morning, Troy is in ruins, and nearly all of her people are dead or captured. The Greek soldiers gather the remaining Trojan women, including Queen Hecuba and Andromache, Hector's widow, who are new to be taken as slaves. Andromache clutches her young son Astyages, hoping to take him with her. But a Greek herald informs her that her son must die, thrown from the city's wall, to prevent any future threat or revenge against the Greeks. She knew what the Greek herald said was true. There was no help. Heartbroken, she bids his son, Astyanax, as a final farewell before he is taken away and killed. Aphrodite, who had always supported the Trojans, intervenes to save Helen. She guides Helen safely back to her husband, Menelaus, who surprisingly welcomes her back and takes her with him to Greece. Thus, Helen, the woman for whom the war was fought, survives as a captive wives, and children of Troy are taken away. As the Greek ships depart, the remaining Trojan women watch their homeland burn, knowing their lives as they knew them are over. The city that once stood as Asia's most powerful, proud metropolis is now a smoking ruin, and the remaining survivors weep for their families, their freedom, and the great city of Troy itself, which is lost forever. So that's the end of the story. But let me remind you this. The Glass of the Fall of Troy remains a powerful cautionary tale, offering valuable insights into human nature and the consequences of our actions. So thank you for watching and have a blessed day, everyone.